Hello, internet world. Welcome to potentially the inaugural episode, potentially a practice episode of this show, which we, I guess, don't have a name for yet. We'll come up with a name. So insert name here. Between Kenny Barber on the other side of the screen here and myself, Anthony D'Orazio with CHP, Complete Human Performance. And so I thought we would do a show chatting about weekly sports topics. This will probably, the way I foresee this show going, I'm sure it will evolve over time as, we get comfortable doing it and sort of, as it grows and evolves and our conversations grow and evolve. And as we hear from you, anyone that is watching this out on YouTube land in the future, if you guys like certain things, maybe we'll probably do more of that stuff for all of you. But, we do have the podcast. Kenny's been a guest on the podcast a couple times now, I believe. And I'm sure he'll come on in the future because he's always great about that. And I love having him on. So we'll probably leave sort of more serious, in-depth conversations of specific biomechanical, nutrition, training type topics there. That's not to say we won't cover them here as we discuss, something like Phil Mickelson winning, PGA championship at the age of 50 and almost 51, like this week. But, to me, this show is going to be more, hey, what are some cool stuff we saw this week? What did we, what were the biggest events that in sports that we saw? What do we think went into them? What do those athletes really succeed at? What do they really do well? And, we'll go from there. So Kenny, welcome on.
Welcome. Sorry, my mute was on.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's our first episode. It's all right.
Yeah,
I got my sparkling water here. I need to sip on it.
I got a glass.
Yeah, I should, but I've become like addicted to these sparkling waters. I really like this one. This is a Waterloo Summer Berry. It's delicious.
Nice.
You see that? Yeah, it's really good.
We always have the LaCroix. I drink that limoncello one. And if you can see, I haven't drank any of this yet. So I almost fell down the stairs twice this week coming down here because I still didn't I just have socks on. I fell last week and I didn't learn my lesson and I almost dumped a whole glass of water this week. So that's where I'm at right now.
There you go.
Yeah, I was even thinking like we could call the show like maybe extreme human performance or something of that nature, since we're talking about some pretty cool things that happen in the sports world.
Yeah, and what a week for us to do our first, our inaugural episode. There's a whole lot of stuff we could chat about. So we're recording this on Monday, the 24th of May, 2021. If you happen to be watching this in the future. So a lot of stuff happened this weekend. Let's start, since I already mentioned him, let's mention Phil Mickelson, wins the PGA championship. His first major since I think I'm going to get the date wrong, 2013, 2014.
Yeah,
somewhere
it's
around
been
there.
A while. Yeah, and he hasn't won the PGA since 2005, I think it was. I saw.
It's been a while. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that you sit there and go, yeah, you and I are, of similar age range here. And, you think like, oh yeah, Phil's the guy that plays golf. And you think, he's very good. He's been, for most of our adult lives, he's been playing professional golf, our entire adult lives effectively. And then you realize like, dude's 50 years old because he's been playing we've been adults for a long period of time at this point.
Yeah.
And I think to me, it's really a testament to, how much he's changed, right? Golf is, I think golf gets a bad rap as not being very physical when, if you've ever actually played golf, you have to be well-trained to be out there in the sun for, hours on end, walking, really far, being able to calm yourself to hit a very, a highly skilled, you can perform a very highly skilled action, to a very high degree of difficulty a lot of times, under pressure if you're at a PGA event, and, and do that over the course of 4 days if you're in a tournament. That's not an easy thing to do. Like, I do not do well in the heat, right? I know I go outside in the heat for like an hour or 2 hours, and I like come in and want to take a nap immediately.
Yeah, you're done. I hear that. That's why I go in the pool. It's too much. But yeah, I mean, and what a great testament to the mental side, right? Someone that, in 50 years old and who in the past has had a little trouble finishing tournaments, right? At the end, we had my dad's 70th birthday yesterday, right? And I have the TV set up outside and we're all watching the end and I'm like, man, I hope he doesn't, do an old Phil Mickelson, right? He struggled for a while, and it is mentally just draining, right? That's a long day, a long weekend, right? They're playing, so many holes of golf, and the final day, you got to imagine they're already exhausted, right? They've already played. What do they play? Is it 4 rounds, 3 rounds?
Four rounds, 18
rounds.
holes around.
Yeah. So
for people that don't know golf, right? I guess if you know golf, you're like, of course you know that, but yeah.
Yeah. So 72 rounds, right?
72 holes.
Or 72 holes, excuse me. Like you said, how much is he walking through in them 4 days and out in the hot sun and mentally exhausted and, 50 years old at this point. And it's just a testament to, I think, strong mental training as well as physical.
Golf is one of those things where, excuse me, as you mentioned with the mental aspect of it, is where each action you take has such a high impact on the final result, which is, there's very few other sports that are like that.
Yeah, like margin of error, right? The margin of error for golf is like this. It's so small.
Exactly. Like he ended up winning by 1 stroke, right? Over 72 holes, he was 1 stroke better than another guy. Right. If you think about it, like over the course of a basketball game, you could say, well, every time you shoot, there's, you really should make that, if you miss, like that's 2 points, 2 or 3 points you didn't get.
Yeah.
But misses are part of the game, right? You're going to miss in basketball. So, if you miss a shot in the first quarter, like, yes, it's not great, but it's also, you missed a shot in the first quarter. Like, it's not, you can come back from that where, and you can do that to some extent with golf, but you have more shot opportunities over the course of like a series, as a team than you do in golf. So it's just, every shot for 4 days has to be, pretty
close. Yeah. You could hit one ball in the water and you take a penalty, and next thing you know, you shoot a 10 on one hole, and it might bump you out of the tournament. You might even make the cut, right? That's how
exactly.
That's how quick it can happen in golf. And you think about like baseball, if you get 3 hits out of every 10 at bat, you're an all-star, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
in like sports like football, where it's okay, like you're running with the ball, or running to catch the ball, or running to tackle someone. If you take one misstep, like, yes, it could be bad, right? But chances are it's not like every single step has, the same weight that every single golf shot has.
Yeah.
Right. Is, you could stumble, you see guys stumble and still make the play, or still, stumble and still get through a hole. If your name's Tyreek Hill, you get through any hole, basically, even if you fell on your ass.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I find so impressive is just that, as you put it, that margin for error is just so small. And yet these guys are just so good at, staying concentrated and being, so consistent and so precise over that period of time. And of course, that's, it's like, I didn't watch much of the tournament, but I watched a little bit. It's like the wind's blowing all over the place. Like I don't play golf, but I would shoot a million. I'm like,
yeah. And that's where you can't really appreciate it. I'm not a big golf guy either, right? I enjoy watching it. I don't mind watching it. My nephew had his bachelor party a few weeks ago, and I went down and I didn't even play. I just rode on the golf cart with them and just kind of laughed at everybody, right? They're actually, a couple of them are decent golfers, right? And when I say decent, I just mean, amongst friends. They're good golfers. They played in high school. My nephews they can hit the ball pretty well, and it just, you really appreciate how hard it is when you see guys that played in high school who are pretty good golfers now, right? And then you compare it to like what they shoot, and then you see what these guys shoot. And then you see where they're teeing off from versus where the pros tee off from, right? It's like, I'm like, oh, that's the tee box for the pros all the way back there. Those guys are so, and we're watching it with my dad and my uncles yesterday. My one uncle's a really good golfer, like really good. And he's, an older guy, but he's still a good golfer. Golf's been in my family for years. My grandfather was like a club champ before at his club. Like, so it's like in our family, but I've just never, I get too bored. I'm like, oh, squirrel. And I'm like done. I could play like 4 or 5 holes, right? My point is, like seeing how good some of these guys are and then just comparing it to how good the pros are. And my dad's like, oh yeah, he's hitting his 6-iron, 200 and some yards. He's like, that's like my full drive. How far these guys can hit the ball consistently and straight, right? That's the big thing.
that was something else I wanted to mention is that, we again, sort of getting back to the idea that golf isn't, high impact or very athletic activity. You look at how long these guys are, and yes, the sustain forces involved in golf are not high, right? You're mostly walking,
Yeah.
and then standing around, and then you have to like hit a ball. But if you think about the transient forces and torque that you need into a drive, Phil is one of the longer players on tour.
He
right?
crushed one right at the end yesterday. He
Yeah,
he outdrove the guy that drives it really far at the end. It was crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, if you watch the HBO Tiger Woods documentary, which I would recommend to anyone that, if you have a passing interest in either him or golf, it's worth a watch. But they talk about, at one point they talk about how he wrecked his knee. And they're like, one hypothesis is that it was just the sort of his swing was so violent. And then they show this like montage of like him swinging right at different ages and just how violent it is, like how much force he can generate. It's like, well, yeah, like if I was swinging that hard multiple times a day, because obviously he's practicing pretty much every day, or if not playing every day, there's a lot of repeated high force transient, events that are happening to your body.
Yep.
So again, someone like Phil that's managed to get through, a career that's, he's in better shape. I think he would admit he's in better shape now than he was early in his career. You could tell if physical fitness became something during the course of his career that became more important, and, again, that sort of resiliency he's built up with his fitness is very impressive, because I don't remember him ever having really a serious injury. Maybe I'm completely mistaken there, but I don't remember him ever being like out for a long period of time, at least not like Tiger was.
I don't remember anything like that. But he did actually talk about his nutrition at the end, his interview at the end. He talked about, eating less, staying lean, right? Because to stay leaner, and he's like, I can't eat as much as these younger guys can and get away with it at this point. He did say something about intermittent fasting to help his arthritis. I don't know if I per se agree with that, but it is what it is. If it's helping him, good for him, right? If he does struggle with arthritis, something I struggle with, but maybe he's experiencing less inflammation or something like that. But it was interesting. In my coaches group, somebody had mentioned it, like he talked about how intermittent fasting was, saving his life, basically, not saving his life, but making him play better. And it's good to hear people are talking about nutrition and things that are helping them. And it's good that he is taking that initiative, right? As he gets older, how can I still be competitive? How can I still, help my body succeed here? And that's what he's doing. Whatever's working for him seems to be doing a job, and Tom Brady's another example of guys playing into their 40s at football is insane to me to even think about. The guys, I think he's around my age. I think, was he 43, 44, something like that?
Brady? Yeah, he's like 43 or 44. I'm not sure.
My age. I can't even imagine playing an NFL football game at my age. Right. So, and, so it's cool to see guys really paying attention to, as they, age, to paying attention to nutrition, really figuring out what works. And like you said, with such a violent swing, right. And we're only seeing the finished product. We're seeing the 72 holes of all those practice rounds and all the swing time and repeated motions, right, which we know eventually can lead to wear and tear type injuries, especially with your I would assume your knees and your low back, and which Tiger struggled with. As someone who does struggle with some back pain, I swing a softball bat still, and that's a violent motion, right, and it tends to bother me, right. So these guys are doing it for a living, right, and then you have that pressure, a lot of money on the line too at the end there. They're making a couple $1 million if they win. So yeah, really an impressive feat. It really was. As far as having a good weekend to start, there were some crazy things that happened, and that was really cool to see him do that.
So congrats to Phil if he ever happens to watch this on YouTube. Good job, Phil.
Yeah.
He has no chance of ever watching this on YouTube. Yeah. The second thing I the other thing I found most impressive about this particular weekend was Simone Biles does I have to read this because otherwise I'll get it wrong, the Yurchenko double pike vault. She's the first woman to land it in competition. It's been done by the men. I guess it may have been done by other women in practice and training, but she's the first woman to do it in competition. So if you have not gotten a chance to watch it, if you just type that in, or Simone Biles and look up the news for this week, it will you'll find a link.
Yeah, it's on her Instagram too.
Yeah, and it's basically she runs at the vault, does like a cartwheel into the vault, does it, and then does a double pike. So 2 flips in a pike position.
Yeah, backwards,
and
yeah.
lands. Now, as I told my wife, the thing that made it most impressive was the fact that her landing stunk, right? So her landing was terrible, right? If you want, and to me, that was actually the most impressive part of it, was that she made the vault look so easy because she over rotates the vault. Like, so she actually like over rotates it and like doesn't stick the landing. So she kind of like over rotates, lands, and like has to like take a step back. She's over rotating, like her weight's backwards, falling back. So she takes like 2 big steps back. So if you, and the thing I told my wife when we watched it together, because I actually saved it, I want to watch it with her and get our reactions together, was that if you didn't know anything about women's gymnastics or that particular vault and you watched her do it, you'd be like, oh, she messed up the landing. And that's what you would take from the vault, because she made it look so stupidly easy, like the actual vault itself, that you'd be like, oh, she messed up the landing. Right. Because, you would expect like, oh, if it's the first time doing it in the competition, maybe the nerves, like, usually when someone first does something in competition, like think about like skateboarding, whenever those guys do something for the first time, like they miss it like 75 times and they like barely hit it for the first time. Right. Like when they finally hit it, it's like they barely hit it. Simone didn't barely like rotate around in that like second, pike position, backflip. She over rotates it. So that's what I found was just so impressive, is that she's the greatest gymnast that's ever lived.
Yeah, I don't even think it's close at this point.
Yeah, it's certainly within, I want to say just ever. Like, I don't even want to just regardless of sex or gender, like just ever.
She's unbelievable.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. So I guess, what are your thoughts? I'm like blown away by her whenever she does anything, basically.
Yeah. So, I find gymnastics fascinating, right? I think it's the coolest sport as far. I just think the things that they do are unbelievable, right? The body weight movements they perform and how much power they generate. And, but seeing how, like there is a video of her actually nailing it. I think it was in a practice video. And yeah, I think she was a little jacked up. I think she was a little excited, right? She's in competition and so she had too much power on a double back pike, which is insane to think about, but that's how elite she is, right? That's how incredibly unbelievable she is. But to watch her run, right, just sprinting to the vault, it was like, wow, like she's really fast, and just the power she generates is incredible. But then I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, where does this go in 20 more years? Like, what does this look like in 2041, right? How much better can it get? Like, how much higher or faster can these athletes get? And just in gymnastics, right? We see what they do now. Like, you see the men's like what's it called, the high bar, and they're doing 3 flips in the air over the high bar and then catching the bar, or like the rings, what they do now on the rings. And you see the girls now on the vault, just every year it gets more and more challenging. Like, what happens in 20 more years? Like, what are we seeing at this point? That's my question.
Well, what I think is crazy is whenever you watch, you get so used to, and this is just partially just what do we favor in this country in terms of television time, is that, when these types of events get shown on television, it's always the Olympic caliber athletes, right? For the most part. You'll get the like NCAA championships sometimes, but it's mostly like the Olympics or Olympic trials or something like that on like a Saturday afternoon, and especially for the women, because the women do get higher ratings than the men for gymnastics. And the thing is, like, if you go on like YouTube and you end up watching like a NCAA just meet for gymnastics, you end up watching them and you're like, well, why aren't they doing, why are the routines seem shorter? They're not like doing all the crazy super flips that I'm used to seeing, because you forget, you only see the top, half of 1%, in the world. And that's like, that becomes the standard. That's what you're used to seeing. And in some ways, I think it's worth, telling people, like, go watch just like UCLA has a good gymnastics team. Like, go watch the UCLA, right? Go watch one of their meets, or just, highlights from a meet. Just to give you an idea, like, what good D1 gymnasts look like and what they're doing, to give you an idea just how insane the Olympic caliber athletes are, right? Because the D1 athletes are ridiculous, right?
Yep.
With those,
like another step up.
Yeah, like we were talking off as we were talking before we started recording, there's these small increments like add up to a lot of times in competition.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know where it goes in 20 odd years. What we'll be seeing. I mean, I think we'll see more, keeping it to just women's gymnastics. I think we'll see, at least we'll probably see a couple other athletes be able to land.
Yeah.
The Yurchenko double, for example. But I think, Simone is, I think she's like the type of athlete that doesn't come along very often. To have that sort of power that she's able to generate, you just don't see it. Like, you just don't see it very often.
It's so crazy to see. It really is. And it, like you said, maybe it's just a volume thing. Maybe more people can do it, right? Or attempt it, right? Because she did. That's usually what happens. One person does it and then they're like, oh, I want to try this, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I think it takes, there's very few people that have just the
ability,
the sort of total capacity, to do it. Like their peak end of athleticism, is high enough to actually do it. Right. Like you and I, like our peak, like my peak athleticism was never anywhere near being able to do what she did. Like at no point, like I could have trained a million years. I wasn't doing that.
No.
But, so I think just the type of athlete she is, and how special she is as an athlete, that just doesn't come along very often. And then that type of athlete has to end up in gymnastics.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's the thing is how, if you're, I don't know, I don't have any daughters, I have a couple of nieces, but they're very young. Like, I don't know if I had a daughter and that's like, I want to do gymnastics. Like, given some of the stuff that's happened in the gymnastics world over the last 10 years that we've heard about, and the sort of sexual abuse that's happened to those athletes, how, as a parent, do you feel comfortable, putting your daughter or your son into, that type of potential situation, right? Putting them into gymnastics.
Yeah. That documentary was awful. I don't know.
Yeah. Versus going into, I don't know, women's basketball or,
or even like cheerleading, right? Cheerleading, that's a big one where it's kind of got some crossover. Competitive cheer has gotten bigger and bigger every year. And even those girls like pushing each other to do crazier stunts and flips and throws and, but that's why I always wonder, because I grew up with a Moto X guy, right? He's actually a pretty famous Moto X rider now. And just seeing where they have gone trick wise, since 20 years ago, for gymnastics, it always fascinates me. And like you said, I do watch some college stuff, right? I really like gymnastics and I'll watch some, it's on like ESPN, the Ocho, it's like, oh, men's college championships or men's women, right? You get to see and they're, like you said, they're not doing what the Olympians are doing, but it's still just absolutely incredible what these people can do with their bodies and, maintain so many credits in college and still find time to train and eat and, especially a sport like gymnastics, which takes hours and hours and hours of training, right?
And it's not easy on your body.
No, it's brutal. And we're not talking like a, 2-hour football practice after school. We're talking, just multiple sessions a day and you're working on speed and flexibility and strength and so many different disciplines within gymnastics, right? Whether it's vault or floor or balance beam, so many different variations.
Yeah. And I think, the other thing is that if you are a superb athlete, male or female, where are you going to put that athleticism, right? If you're thinking about, if you're really like, cream of the crop and it, like, right? Or at least people around when you're in that sort of situation, in high school or something like that. Are you going to you have to really love gymnastics, I think, to go down that route because it's not the most lucrative, right? Like think about women's gymnastics, just women's gymnastics right now. Who are famous women gymnasts right now that are like sort of present day? Simone Biles, Caitlin Ohashi, maybe, who's like just finished college, I think last year, right? Because she had the perfect 10. Like she's got 2 perfect 10s in college. And if you should look up her YouTube 10 floor routine. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, but it's like those are the only 2 I know. Right now, I'm sure with the Olympics we'll learn more because women's gymnastics always gets a big push during the Olympics.
Yeah,
but right, like I can't name anyone else. you know, and that's sad given the caliber of athlete that's, you know, will be competing for, you know, the US and other countries in the world in a couple months, or potentially in a couple months, I guess.
I think it's similar to like college wrestling, right? A tough
Yeah.
sport, right? And how many, you know, I can name them, but I follow wrestling, but like how many top college wrestlers can somebody name, right? Or probably not many, right?
Yeah, no, I can't, like when they're actually wrestling in college, it's very, very few. Like
Yeah.
I can, like, I usually know them like right as they finish up. And like, I view myself as someone that has like a passing interest in wrestling, like more than the average like sports fan, probably less than you.
Yeah.
No, but like, because I was at Ohio State, I knew, Snyder, right? What was his name?
Kyle Snyder. Yeah.
Yeah. College. So I thought it
He
was,
was on
but
the Olympic. He made the Olympic team. So.
yeah, he went to the Olympics, but like he was a dominant force, right? Like he was. How can I not know him being on Ohio State's campus?
Especially at Ohio State. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, because he got publicized like in the Ohio State stuff a little bit, you know. But you know, a lot of the guys I know like after, and they like if they go on to something else, you know, it's very, you know, I'm trying to think of who else I knew like when they were in college. That was like Kale Sanderson. I knew when he was in college, just because he was undefeated.
Yeah.
So that got a lot of press because no one, you know, he was undefeated his entire college career.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's actually a cool topic. I think, like, you know, the sports people choose, and like everybody always asks like why America isn't as competitive in like weightlifting, right? And I'm like, well, because a lot of those athletes are playing other sports, and for good reasons. They're getting money to go to college to play football or wrestling or track, right? They're getting full scholarships.
But free college education plus potentially millions of dollars over here.
Yeah, or weightlifting.
No brutal training for very little recognition or money or scholarships over here.
And if you're lucky, it'll pay for your trip. Yeah, if you're lucky, it'll pay for your trip to the Olympics. If you're lucky.
Yes, if you're lucky.
You know, and you look at like a young kid like CJ Cummings, right, who's absolutely crushing it versus the world now too, and
insane.
You know, that's a rare occurrence. But from what I understand, I think he played football as well, and he was a good football player. But he did choose weightlifting, which is pretty cool. You know, and hopefully a whole medal or something. But you know, on the flip side, maybe he could have got a full ride for football at a big university. You don't know, especially having, you know, that kind of athletic ability to be so superior in that sport, which I think transfers to many sports, right? Especially football or wrestling or something like that. And you see a guy like, you know, him, and then you think like, hey, Jordan Burroughs, right? I know you know who he probably is wrestling wise.
Yeah, he just lost against the Dake, right?
Yeah, to qualify for the Olympics. Yeah, but I mean, but that's another guy a little older now. He's on his, you know, elder years, and Dake's just a force at this point.
The Dake bomb.
Yeah, but I mean, just like seeing these guys that just, you know, choosing wrestling over, you know, maybe another sport where they could go to the NFL, or, you know, so that you know, that's a good topic. I always like to talk about that. Like, you know, why are we not as good in certain sports? It's an interesting topic to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's right. It's just, where's the money, right? And I think I don't think you could ever fault someone for taking the money, right, and trying to set themselves and their family up for long-term success, right? How do you know, it's like when people get mad at like college students for like taking money. It's like, well, how are you gonna be mad at them, right? Like, you don't know their situation. Like if they have a family member in the hospital, or they grew up in a area that's you know, their family's economically depressed or something like that, or how could you not take the money, right? You're an idiot if you don't like, no, I'm worried about my future. No, your future is like the NFL or NBA or, you know, whatever
it may be. Yeah, I mean, look at a guy like Kyler Murray, right? Dual sport, could have signed big in baseball too, right? It just, you know, having that ability to choose, and he chose football, which I was a little surprised because physically, but then, you know, you do see some, again, it's like kind of like golf where you see some pretty bad injuries in baseball just due to the explosiveness needed there and the torque needed. And so, you know, the man, he's a great player to watch in football too.
Yeah, he's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do well, I guess we could go, since there was so much stuff that happened. Those are our two main things we want to chat about. But let's do like a quick rundown of other stuff that's going on, and I guess our thoughts on things. So we'll start. NBA playoffs kicked off We had the play-in tournaments, I guess. Did you watch any of that? What were your thoughts?
I saw some of it. I'm a huge Curry fan. I love watching that guy. I don't know what it is. I just never seen a player like him, like do the things he does. So they were in the play-in games, and they lost to the Lakers by 3, and they lost in overtime the second game, so they didn't make the play-in. But I was kind of mad because I wanted to see him at least one more series this year. He doesn't have much help on his team, but still competitive, still exciting to watch. But yeah, now I'm close to Philly, so I'm always watching the Sixers. They won their first game yesterday, so I expect them to make a deep run, but Brooklyn looks pretty good, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out in the East Finals. And I think the West is pretty wide open right now due to a couple of key injuries and due to the Lakers seed. Jamal Murray on the Jazz getting hurt, or not on the Jazz, on the Nuggets. He's out now. Is he
out, or what?
Yeah,
what's
he's
his deal?
Achilles, tore his Achilles.
Okay, jeez.
Yeah, or no, tore his ACL, I think it was.
Neither one's good. So.
No, so I mean, you're talking about, I think they're the 3 seed or 4 seed. They're, that's tough for them.
Yeah, Nuggets are the 3 seed. I actually pulled it up over here.
Yeah, and then the Blazers had a big win already. So I think the West is kind of wide open. I think the East is probably 3 or 4 teams that are going to be battling there. So it should be an interesting playoffs for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. The play-in stuff was interesting. It took me, I guess wasn't following that closely as to what was supposed to happen. So it took me a day to figure out all right, these two, the winner of this one plays the loser of this game.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell's going on? Because the number of games didn't add up in my head. I'm like, how are they doing this? There's a weird number of games.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, because they're doing this weird thing. I don't know if I like it. I can't decide if I like it. I guess it prevents an extra 2 or 3 teams from tanking.
Yeah.
Right. If you're the 10th seed, I guess you aren't going to tank. Right. So if you can sneak into the playoffs and get on a hot streak, I would say, so that's the advantage. I would say the disadvantage is when I'm watching these games, I'm the basketball's not that great. Right. Because I'm watching some team that's, 33 and 39 were the Hornets, and they got into one of the playing games. You're 33 and 39, you stink.
Yeah, you're not even 500. Even the Warriors, I think they ended up 39 and 33 or something.
Let's see, they were 39 and 33.
Yeah,
but
so that was not their best. It was not their best team they had, right? We know that Clay's out, the center was out. They're missing a bunch of guys. Not the same team.
Yeah, no. So I agree. But with your assessment of kind of the conferences, it was sad to see, having been a Cleveland fan and having, obviously grown up in Cleveland and seeing the LeBron Curry battles, obviously play very strongly for the hometown team.
Yeah.
And, sure. Hating the meanie Warriors. With that said, objectively, Curry's a phenomenal player, especially the hot streak he was on was absurd. The guy can shoot it from anywhere.
What was that? 3 weeks ago ish when he had how many games with 10 3-pointers?
I don't know. I couldn't miss.
I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
So so it's unfortunate he's out, but I do agree that the West is pretty open. I haven't, I tend to basketball. As I was telling you offline, I've enjoyed less recently for whatever reason. I do enjoy playoff basketball more though. I think the problem is, the last year's been so weird with how compressed the schedule has been.
Yeah.
That I'm hoping playoff basketball kind of is normal playoff basketball with that intensity. It sucks that the fans, we can't have the fans full-fledged quite yet.
Yeah, it's kind of half now, I think.
Yeah, I mean the vaccination rates just aren't where they should be, which is a whole nother topic that will infuriate me if we get into. People won't get vaccinated. It's weird. I don't understand it. But at any rate, so you kind of miss that playoff atmosphere a little bit.
Yeah.
If I have to what team I'm rooting for, I love Damian Lillard. Because that guy is just an assassin.
Yeah. And they won their first game, which
was
kind of an upset there.
But I'm excited. I'll watch him. I'll root for him.
I actually love what the Suns are doing.
The Suns are good.
Good young squad. I love that Booker.
What is up with the Clippers? Talk about a giant backfire on a super duo.
Yeah, man, I don't know. And I know Paul George has struggled at times in playoffs. We know Kawhi's
let's put it this way.
Player, right?
they have, as of a year ago, they had these, Kawhi and Paul George that were supposed to be this, the saviors of the Clippers. And I'm looking at them; they're the 4th seed. So objectively, they did pretty well during the regular season.
Yeah,
I am shocked they're the 4th seed.
yeah. Well,
I don't expect them to do anything.
and who are they playing?
I guess the Mavericks, right?
Yeah,
they
we
should
already
be
beat them game
Mavericks.
1. I mean, I love watching that guy too. That's another guy I love. Luca, what a great player.
Yeah, okay, he's good.
I mean, he's like 12 years old, and he's like he's
the babyface assassin over there.
Oh my God, he's unbelievable. And does it all over, right? He assists and scoring and rebounding, just a freak. But yeah, it's going to be crazy over there, because I think that injury to Jamal Murray is big. I think it's going to change how the playoffs looked, and I think the Jazz had an amazing season, but we'll see how that transfers into the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And
especially because they're playing Portland. Like, because if Damian and who's the other guy that plays for them?
McCollum.
Yeah, DJ McCollum. If they go off, if they have a good series, those two can carry a series pretty easily.
There's so many good players in the West too, and it's going to be interesting. I'm very interested in the West, but again, the East, it's going to come down to Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Sixers. They're probably your top 3 bets there.
Yeah.
I can't see anyone else breaking through those 3 personally.
I can see. Didn't the Heat beat Milwaukee last year? Am I making that up?
Yep, that's how they got to the finals. And they're playing them round 1 this year.
Yeah, and the first game went to overtime, right?
Yeah, so that is an interesting series. And it wouldn't shock me, right? We know,
especially because Jimmy Butler seems like one of those people that you have to literally pull out a machine gun to make him quit.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. When you have Jimmy Butler on your team, you got a chance, because I think that guy is just tough as nails, and
the guy just won't ever lay down. It's exciting as hell to watch. Good for him.
He's not a guy I want to see in the playoffs. He's just one of them people that
he turns it up for sure.
Yeah, and he never goes away, and that's they're the kind of guys I love watching.
Yeah, they're fun.
That's why the Sixers. I think the Wizards are a tough team, right? You got Westbrook, who's as tough as they come, and Bradley Beal, who second scorer in the league. They can put the ball in the hoop, and it's not gonna be an easy series. Basically, is what I'm saying for the Sixers. So they got to play well. They did win game 1, so that was big. And the Knicks got upset last night after they've been playing so well. Atlanta beat them, I was pretty surprised about that, because the Knicks were really hot going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I know they're playing well.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
All right, the other thing that we said we'd mention, because I think those are the major things, would be track and field, because there's some craziness that's happened in track and field the last couple of weeks. I know this is a little bit more, we're widening our window of time here, but I think it's worth shouting out, especially with this potentially being an Olympic year. We'll see how that all shakes out. I know, unfortunately, the COVID infection rate's pretty high in Japan right now, and they're recommending to not do the Olympics again.
Yeah, so, I saw that. I was surprised, but it was just not cool to see. I wanted to see it. Well, I guess let's talk about that briefly. What are your thoughts there? It's worth mentioning. It's a tough decision, but if they can get all the athletes vaccinated, right? If they can be sure they are, and they want to go compete and they're okay with it, I don't see a problem with it. But it's just making sure that.
Do you ban spectators? I would ban spectators.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You just go sans, spectators, and just like it's kind of been over here, right? Just play, have everybody stay in their own areas, and almost have the bubble, right? Or
I think that's effectively the way you'd have to do it at this point. It's really unfortunate, but I think objectively, like if the case rates are so high, I can see why if you live in Japan, you don't want the Olympics, right?
Yeah,
it makes complete sense. I probably wouldn't want them either. With that said, I think sit there and I feel for the athletes, because the Olympics is the Olympics, right?
You train for 4 years.
You're peaking, like that's the years you're really trying to peak.
Yeah.
They're not peaking for a world championship in the off years, but Olympic years, there's people that have entire 4-year cycles to build up for an Olympic year. And it's like, all right, we delayed once. is there a way where we could do it safely? And I think, like you said, if you do a bubble, you make sure, you say the athletes have to be vaccinated. That's the only way we're going to let them in. Right. And you can prove you're vaccinated. We keep you in a bubble. We give you access to everything you need, basically like the NBA bubble last year.
Yeah.
If you do it that way, you could pretty much mitigate any risk, as much as you could potentially. I think that'd be a way to do it. And, you're still going to get all the revenue the Olympic people are going to get the IOC is going to get all the revenue because as has been shown many a time, the actual host country usually loses money on these things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
That's a whole different
That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Right. The fact is right now the Olympics exist. This is the way we're running them.
Yeah.
We're not going to argue whether or not that's the right way to run them. It's not.
Correct.
But yeah, I think that's the way I would try to do it, or at least I would float that and see if if I was in Japan, I would float that and say, hey, do we think this is doable? Can we get the public on board? Right. Because if the public's not on board, like the public should have a say, right? It's their country. They're the ones that are going to have to live with the repercussions if it goes wrong.
Yeah.
To some extent the world, right? Because, the pandemic's not going away until it goes away globally.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to make it happen, which is, because I just, the only other option I could see is moving it, right? Do you just say, hey, we're going to run it in the state, somewhere, we're Americans, so I want to say the states, but also we have the best infrastructure, right? Like you can find a place where you need to have everything you need within like a 25-mile radius.
Yeah.
You can run it.
Facility wise, it would make sense.
Yeah. But
yeah. And again, like imagine being an athlete and they say, hey, no, and then does somebody get hurt, right? Or you're just at the end of your age range, right? To be competitive or want to still compete at that level and grind out a whole another year or whatever.
Yeah, if you're a sprinter and you're like, if you're Justin Gatlin,
yeah,
right, whose career is winding down. Like this year, it seems like Father Time seems to have finally caught up to him. The dude's been like the ageless sprinter for like the last 5 years. But it seems like this year's probably the year he doesn't make the team. But still, it's like, he's close enough where he could, if other guys have, on the trials day, if other guys have off days, he can make it. And he could probably make the 4x1 team for sure. Run that second 200.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, lots of cool stuff going on in the world of track and field. So Terrence Laird, if you haven't seen what he's done, he threw down a 19.8 at the SEC championships in the what did he run? I got to look it up. Let's see if it's on his Wikipedia page. He threw it down a 9.8. It was technically wind assisted. It was a +3 meter per second wind. So I don't know. Was that like a 9.9 something? If it was legal, probably
for 100 meter.
Yeah, for 100 meter, but still, I think it's the fastest time this year, wind aided or not. So 9.8, and then a night. Yeah, I was right. It was like very similar. 19.8-1 in the two. That was honest. That's an unassisted wind. He did have a wind assisted 19.64, right? In the 200. So the dude's just throwing down huge numbers very early on in the season. I know also Kenny Bednarek, who is a pro, has been running really well in the 200. So shout out to him. There's another guy that just went under 10 in the 100, and he's trying to be the third guy in history to have a sub 44 400, a sub 20 200, and a sub 10 100. I'm forgetting his name, but Fred Kearney, yes, that's right. Okay. Kearney.
Is Usain Bolt the other person that has done that?
It might be. There's only two other guys. I don't know who it was.
And like Carl Lewis or something.
Yeah, it's not me. He's missing one. I forget. I think he's missing like the 200, which is kind of weird. Like, 'cause I think his 100. I think he threw down a sub 10 100 earlier this year. So he's got one of the faster 100s this year. There are a couple of guys in the 9.9s, and then Sha'Carri Richardson.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sha'Carri Richardson had a really fast 100 earlier this year. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, I know she's running really well. She just lost this weekend. 10.72, I think. Yeah, 10.72. This early in the 100.
Motor.
Yeah, that's flying. So
I was gonna say, did you find who that long jumper was?
I did not. I did not
Okay.
see.
I couldn't find. It was on the Sports Center Instagram or something. Somebody sent it to me. But yeah, he jumped 28 feet, almost 29 feet. He was like right there.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
the
crazy.
record is 29 and a
29.
quarter with Mike Conley.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been around for a long time, that record.
Yeah, that's one of those records that kind of under debate as to whether it was legal or not. Because I think he did. It wasn't set in Mexico City, and everyone thinks there was a wind.
Maybe.
So it was like high altitude and a wind.
And a wind. I mean, but this dude, he literally fell out of the box after he landed. Like that's how far he jumped.
Yeah, I feel like I saw him. I don't think I saw that particular jump, but I think I know who you're talking about because I think I saw him jumping in an earlier meet this year. I saw highlights of him jumping.
He's 19 years old.
Yeah, and he was like jumping super far.
I thought it was a fake video at first.
He just keeps flying through the air.
Yeah, my friend sent it to me, and he usually just sends me funny stuff on, my Instagram. And I'm watching this video. I'm like, oh my God. And he didn't really look like he was running hard to his approach, but it didn't look like it was that hard, right? And then it was just effortless. He jumped, and
let's see if I can find it.
It's so incredible to see. And I was looking up the world records. I'm like,
was it Javon Harrison? Maybe.
Maybe. It says 8.83 meters. I think he jumped
8.45. Oh no, hold on. Never mind. Hold on. No, that's not it. Javon Harrison. Yeah, wait, hold on.
I think the record is 8.89 or something was my comment.
8.4 date of birth. Oh, that's date of birth. Yeah. 12th of March, 2021. You jumped 8.45. That looks like the world leading on worldathletics.org.
It wasn't him then. Try type in like 8.83 long jump.
Senior, all right.
That's why I was so mad. There was no name or nothing when he sent it to me. I was so like, man, who is this guy? Yeah, it was on Sports Center. 8.83 long jump.
Harrison. I think it's got to be this Javon Harrison guy. Yeah, because he's the guy I saw before.
Yeah, of course. I wish they would have put his name. Oh, here it is. Juan Miguel Echeverria is his name.
Oh, that's crazy. I'll have to look it up. That's insane.
8.83 long jump at just 19 years old.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So he's probably like a freshman or sophomore in college? Right?
Something much younger than us. That's the answer to that question.
I'm like, man, I wonder if as soon as I watch it, I'm like, I wonder if Anthony's seen this kid jump.
I have not.
It's incredible.
I have not.
So push the limits.
Yeah. So suffice to say, I would say, if you're watching this video, pay attention to track and field. Again, it'll probably start getting more play with whatever happens with the Olympics. It's the summer anyway. So you've got Diamond League started up. If you're in Europe or you follow Diamond League, those track events are started in Europe finally again this year, which is exciting. And I think the Olympic trials will still happen, I think, because it'll be, at the very least, there'll be world championships. They'll still make that happen somehow. So yeah, lots of cool stuff happening there. And again, a lot of this is happening so early on in the season that, yes, some of these athletes were probably trying to peak a little bit for, SEC, championships and NCAAs, whenever I think NCAAs is going to be, if it didn't happen this past weekend, it probably is happening next weekend or two.
For track?
Yeah.
I think it already happened.
Did it happen?
I think I watched a little bit of it maybe a couple of weeks back or something like that.
Well, I know the conference championships were not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So.
Okay. Maybe I saw something different then. Yeah. I'm trying to think
some of that stuff was on TV. So
yeah,
if you're on TV, you probably saw like SEC or.
Maybe it was. I saw something and I feel like, I don't know. I always feel like it's like Oregon, LSU, like they're always the good schools. Yeah, Oregon always has.
So for track and field, it's always like the SEC or the Pac-12.
Yeah, just
Pac-10, whatever it is. So yeah, I think is there any other events you wanted to cover? I think that was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I did mention my friend's daughter's in the softball. She made it to regionals softball World Series, so that was cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, very very talented young lady. She's at Campbell University. So that's all going on this week, the regional and the super regional.
Yeah, it's on like ESPN like all the time.
Yeah, they had a bunch of games on this weekend. They ended up playing Oklahoma State first game, and they lost. But then they beat Boston, and then they lost to Mississippi State, I believe. So, SEC, Big 12, tough, tough, coming from that mid-major. But they won their conference, so that was cool. So good experience either way. Yeah, it's just great.
Well, congrats to her. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, yeah, it was a busy sports weekend. You don't think of this time of the year being too, right? There's no football right now or, stuff like that. But hockey's playoff wise too. They're in the playoffs. First round, I think, is going on, or second round. I don't know. I should probably pay more attention to hockey. All my nephews play, but the Flyers aren't in it, so I don't watch it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, same thing with like Columbus. Like I'll pay some attention if Columbus is in it, but
yeah,
even that's not much. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our first episode of our nameless, whatever this is. Maybe I'll put it like something on the screen. If you enjoy the episode, give it a like, subscribe. We're going to try and do these weekly, give our reactions to things. If there are certain sports you want us to cover, or you want our thoughts on specific, performances, write them up in the comments. Be happy to give it a look. See, you can sort of tell what we're interested in by our chat today. We're always going to be on the lookout for kind of just cool, random, excellent performances in any variety, any discipline. It could be rock climbing or something crazy, and ultra marathons. So we'll be on the lookout for that sort of stuff. So if you hear of something or know something, just let us know, and we'll give our 2 cents on it. Thank you very much. Sign out for Kenny. I'm Anthony. Kenny, if people want to follow you on social media, where can they do that?
Instagram. I'm KBarber39 on Instagram, and then Facebook is just I don't even know what my Facebook name is.
Yeah, just Instagram is fine. People don't bother you on Facebook.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram at Durazio Anthony. And then if you want to listen to our podcast, I'll put a link in the description below. The CHP podcast. Obviously, we also at CompleteHumanPerformance.com. We have, of course, training and nutrition programs, work one-on-one with you. We also have templates. I'll put the link for that all in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week. Peace.